Hello everyone, my name is Chuck. You're watching episode 157 of Let's Plant. In the previous episode, we were working on this basket. This is the first of 6 that I'll be working on up until winter. So we have quite a bit of time. I think we have about 5 to 6 more months before then, and we already have 2 of them done, which means that we could proceed on a leisurely pace if we are maybe going to do one basket every month. It has only been a week since I worked on this basket, and as you can see, the plants are starting to settle in their new environment. For instance, the Senecio jacobsenii, these trailing plants that you see here, they are starting to turn purple away from their bright green color previously, and because of that they are now blending in nicely with the rest of the arrangement. I already knew the color that they would turn into well in advance, which is why I decided to use them here anyway. So with all of those things out of the way, I think there's a couple more tasks left for me on this pergola. The first of which is potentially moving back all of the Patreon plants into position, and of course doing a massive cleanup. So let's get started. You may have noticed these plants right here. This is a Dichondria argentea or silver falls, and this is a bunch of mondo grass. I forgot what their botanical name was, but it should be somewhere around here. Thankfully it came with a label, and it says Ophiopogon planiscapus nigrosens, or black mondo grass. So as for how I obtained this, the family and I went to a nearby nursery over the weekend, because I guess that's how we spend our family time these days with the quarantine and all. And I was thinking that, you know, something this contrasting might work. I was after this specific plant actually because I know about this one. I think somebody else suggested using this for one of my baskets, and while I was there I remembered of the mondo grass. I really wanted to use mondo grass in one of my arrangements before, but I never got to do it because I wasn't sure how to care for these plants. But apparently all of these, while technically not succulents, they are Cerriscape friendly or drought tolerant, which means that I can perfectly use them together with my succulents. They have more or less the same, well, they would probably work well together with the way I water them, which is not always. So yeah, this might be something I could use. But let's not get distracted. It's time for the cleanup. There's a lot of things to do, and I'll be back. Alright, so I moved out the plants. They're temporarily relocated down here. And now that this section is cleared out, I think it's time to backfill this area. Unfortunately, it will be taking me a lot of time, so I'll be back. Alright, backfilling is done. Basically, I just took some soil from another part of the garden and dumped it here, since it doesn't really matter what type of soil I placed here. The pots, well, the plants are in pots, and I don't think I'll be planting any of my echeverias in the ground here. If anything, I just might be planting some of my ripple jade somewhere at the back, or some sort of filler plant, I don't know. Now that we've got this part sorted, I just need to cover it back again with some of these larger pebbles, larger rocks, and put in the Patreon plants. After a bit of fiddling around, I finally have them in position. Now, all I have left to do for the Patreon shrine is to figure out what I'd like to do on this back section right here, because it's quite bare and there's an abrupt shift from lots of plants, lots of rocks, and suddenly nothing. Either I would be filling it up with a bit of plants, maybe some of the tall, bushy types of plants, or maybe just some ground cover, because this will take a while for all of these plants to trail down. So I would need to help them along by placing some plants underneath that would meet up with these trailing plants. I think I would like to have something, a wall of green, you know, just to cover the fence, and I think it would make all of these earth colors pop, because they are more brown, red, purple. All of those greens, it might just make the rest of these plants pop. I have a few plants in mind. One of my options is to use more of this Crassula undulatifolia, or the ripple jade, because you know, they're quite clumping, quite thick, and I think they fill the place very nicely. The problem with this though is that they grow quite slowly, or at least not fast enough for what I need them to do, because I would like them to fill up, you know, something this high, and for them to grow this high, it would take them maybe 2 or 3 years. So yeah, maybe we should go with something else. My other option is to go with this Crassula tetragona. They look like mini pine trees, and colors wise they are similar to the undulatifolia that I showed you just now. So I think in terms of transition and gradient, this would work really well, and they tend to grow in thick clumps. In this case, I've already thinned them down. I've removed lots of branches here, so they look a bit bare in some areas. But yeah, these things grow really fast, and I think they would make a great fit in that space, because I'm guessing that I would just need a year before they would fill up and cover the fence behind the plants. So this would be forming my curtain, and yeah, shrubby plants for the win. I will definitely do another roundup video showing the shrubby plants that I have in the garden, so make sure you're subscribed so you do not miss out on that. Other than that, I think I like where everything is going right now. I just need to maybe tidy up the top dressing, the pebbles and the rocks that I have here, because they are still quite messy. And there's also the matter of this empty bowl that you see here. It used to be occupied by that gigantic Echeveria Meri 2, so I will have to do it at some point. As for the baskets, I'll be slowly working on them over the next few months. As I mentioned earlier, I am still thinking of some plant combinations that I would like to use on my baskets. A few of you have graciously given me some suggestions, some challenges, if you will. So I think one of them was using a bunch of Graptopedalums and Graptovirias, you know, those trailing types, because I haven't really been working on those types of plants. So this might be this is something new for me, actually. Of course, another basket would be composed of this Silver Falls plant here. I just have to find, I just need to gather a bunch of plants that would contrast nicely against this. But yeah, I definitely want to work with this plant. One final thing I would like to do in this episode is to clear out my Echeveria hatchery. This is basically this space here. And right now, there are all sorts of giant Echeveria growing around. Believe it or not, just last year or a bit over a year ago, all of these plants were tiny pups, and I just sprinkled them around here, because this is basically where I grow my frilly plants before they graduate and they would move on to Philippines, which is behind me. So I think it's about time I work on the next generation of pups. These plants have to go out now and move into bigger spaces or temporarily in pots, because I haven't figured out where they would go quite yet. But in any case, I'd like to move in the pups now. That way they could get settled before winter, and so at least they would have a little bit of head start of growth before they completely shut down during the colder months. I'm not sure how closely you're paying attention, but if you look closely, my shirt has changed. But more importantly, I've gotten rid of the large Echeveria on this mound. Now, I can't remember which episode that was, but I mentioned that this is my nursery or my hatchery. I think I called it the hatchery. Or basically, my hatchery is where I would plant all of my tiny or young Echeveria pups and let them grow. This is a space for them to grow. And once they get large enough, that's when I move them out. And that's actually what we just did. There's a few more plants left here. I think this is an Echeveria blue butterfly. That is an Alma Wilson. I'm not sure what the correct name of that one is, but I had it labeled as Echeveria Shama, or at least that's what I bought it as. And oh, there's one more. That's an Echeveria chihuahuensis. It is not necessarily a cultivar that grows large, so I might remove it from there. It's out of place anyway. And yeah, now we have space for other frilly plants to go in here. And now I should go around the garden in search of pups that should go into the hatchery. I'm not sure if you've seen this, but I posted this on my Facebook page that I was thinking of removing these pups, this frilly and large cultivar of Echeveria. So as you can see, I have a few Echeveria pups down here. They are quite tiny, and I think these are the types that are best suited for the hatchery, because everything else has grown quite large. The reason they're staying that small right now is that there used to be lots of pots around them and depriving them of sunlight, which meant that they were sort of stunted a bit in terms of growth. So what I need to do now is to give them some place where they can have a lot more space, a lot more sunlight, a space for them to stretch their legs, so to speak. And the hatchery is the perfect place for them. So we're going to pull them up and move them to the hatchery. Apart from that, I've also gathered a bunch of echeveria pups that I think could benefit from moving into the hatchery. So let's go ahead and plant them in and see if we can get a spot for all of them. So we're done with the hatchery for now. We have a new batch of plants and I hope that these things establish themselves over the next few weeks because I really want them to be ready for when winter comes. Planting all of those pups in the hatchery has kind of put me in a planting mood, so I think I'll go start working on the back now and then I can call the Patreon shrine done, or at least for the most part. But to make it easier to work in there, I need to remove some of the large pots. That way I would have unobstructed view of the back and it would make going in and out a lot easier. And apart from that, I think we would need to backfill this area because the whole thing seems kind of low and we need to provide some new nutrients to this section anyway. And as mentioned earlier, I wanted to use some of this Crassula tetragona to be the curtain plants at the back. So I rounded up those that I have in pots. I think I still have a few clumps that are in the ground, which I could pull up because they're really out of place anyway. You know what? Since I'm so bent on finishing this thing, I think it's about time that I fill up this bowl because it has been empty since October. And just like that, the bowls are now filled, the balance has been restored, everything is in their proper place. All we need to do is to work on the baskets, but we can slowly work on that. And yeah, I can almost say that we're done with the Patreon shrine. All I have to do next, I guess, is to make sure that everything is filling up properly. I might even have to do a bit of tidying up of the pebbles and the top dressing. But otherwise, yeah, everything's in here. So we managed to achieve a lot of things today. We finished the Patreon shrine, or at least for the most part. We have also filled up the hatchery with a new batch of pups. This frees us up to work on the other parts of the garden, more specifically my agavoides area. I've got a lot of things planned for this section. I'll be revealing my plans over the next few episodes because right now it's just a vague concept in my head, but I can't wait to start drafting some simulations or illustrations. But until then, please subscribe if you don't want to miss out on what I'm going to do next. Make sure to leave a like if you like the episode, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. The kids were laughing.